How to make a beat in GarageBand. I'm going to show you two different ways to make beats in GarageBand. One is using the drummer tracks available with GarageBand, and then the other way is just making our own beats from scratch. I'm Charles Klain, singer, songwriter, and producer. If you're just starting out creating music in GarageBand, or you want to learn more about music production within GarageBand, or maybe even Logic Pro X, please feel free to subscribe to this channel because that's what this is all about. So let me show you how to make a beat in GarageBand right now. I have an empty template set up. So get an empty template set up in GarageBand. And we're going to do the first way where we are going to create a beat from a drummer track. So the first way is we go to track, new track. Under this area, we will click drummer track. Click and then create. And right away, this has created an 8-bar loop of a standard drum set. This is called Liverpool, and this in brackets is the drummer name, you could say. Now we can narrow in on the sound of this drum set. So first off, we need to choose the genre of the drummer, and we do this in the library on the left. So rock, alternative, songwriter, R&B, hip hop, and percussion. So choose your genre. Let's go into, let's say, songwriter, and let's go pop. So once we're in the genre level, the level down, we can choose the drummer. So Levi or whatever, Darcy, Graham, Mason. So let's go Darcy, double click Darcy, and you can see it's switched. And the description of the drummer is at the top here if you're interested. So Darcy, tasteful, restrained, dedicated to serving the song. And we can go left, right with the arrows, get different descriptions of drummers that meet your needs of the song you're making. Now, once we have the drummer, now the level below that is we can choose the drum set. So this list right here, Bluebird, Brooklyn, Detroit, East Bay, and so on, these are all just different drum sets. And these are actually the same drum sets that are available in Logic. So they're really strong sounds and really good drum sets. So each sound here, for example, Bluebird Graham is going to sound like this. So we're still going to be using Graham, but let's say we didn't like the kick and snare sound. We can just switch drum sets. Go to a Brooklyn drum set, see what that sounds like. So every drum set will have a different taste. Once you find the right drum set, now we can narrow in on the actual pattern of the drummer and also the sound of the specific instruments. Like if we want more reverb on the snare, or if we want to change the velocity on things. So let's start with the pattern first. In order to get to the pattern, we can double click on this yellow thing, and that's going to bring up this quadratic here and some more customization knobs here. There are some preset patterns here, so we can just go click these preset patterns, and keep in mind this isn't going to change the Graham thing or the drum set. Now we're just changing the pattern of this Brooklyn Graham. So we can just go here and maybe find a preset that we like of a pattern. If we don't find a preset pattern we like, we can, the quickest way to do this is just take this yellow thing and move it to the style that you're looking for. For example, if it's a verse beat you're looking for, maybe go soft and simple. So that would be more around this. If you want it very soft and simple, go bottom left, and you'll see how simple it is and how soft it will be with this sound. Maybe we don't want it that simple. Well, we would go over to the right then where the complex is. So maybe still soft, but a bit more action. So let's say in general, we like the softness and complexity of the sound now, but we want to change the kick pattern, the snare pattern, the hi-hat pattern. We do that on the right here. So the kick and snare are tied together, and there's 8 different patterns here. So we can go through those and choose the pattern that fits the style you're looking for. For example, this is what the first pattern sounds like. And you can quickly go through them and change different ones you like. If we don't even want the snare in the verse or in this section at all, we can just click this yellow snare and it comes off. Same thing with the kick, with any of these other elements as well. So let's just say we actually just want kick and hi-hats, and maybe we want a different hi-hat pattern. So here, Let's say we're interested in that, but at the ends here, we don't want these fills. Like it gets pretty messy. We can just bring the fills down to 0 if we don't want any fills at all. Using the swing knob will actually create a swing with the beat. So if your song isn't very straight and you would actually have more swing, then put swing in. And you can see that it is a swing beat now. So let's say we like this beat, but we want to change some aspects of the kick and hi-hat. We can do that in the control section. So that's at the top right here. We can click this little control knob, and that's going to bring up this area. Here is where we can actually change the dynamics of the elements within the drum set. So if we actually want the hi-hats to be a bit louder, this is basically the volumes of the elements. So you have the mix area, compression, and effects. Then on the left here, you can drag the slider to adjust the velocity of notes you play. So if you want more sensitivity, then you can scroll to the right. If you're not familiar with the plugins dropdown, this is where you can actually add different plugins that GarageBand gives you. Now the quick way to expand on this, if you're going to use this principle to make a beat in GarageBand, I can make a quick copy like I just did right here by holding down Option on my keyboard and then pressing click with my mouse. Now I can just make a copy of that. That's a very quick way to make copies. Now let's just pretend this is our verse intro, and then we have here like a pre-chorus, let's say the second region. So let's say in the pre-chorus I'm actually going to bring the snare in, then I would just click snare. Now in this section it has a snare. And now let's go take it one step further, make another copy, and let's say this is a chorus section. So let's say in the chorus we add a clap. Let's say we even add a different hi-hat pattern to add some more rhythm, maybe a 16th note pattern. So that would probably be number 5. So you can see the differences when I just play the transition areas. You'll notice that things have changed. And then coming into the chorus. And of course, you have to find out what works with your song and what dynamic. You can also always be going back and just changing things and uploading new genre, new drummers, new drum sets. If we right now go here and click on a hip hop drummer and go to Des, let's say, it's going to give us a notification saying hey, you've made changes. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, we do. Now we've changed the entire drummer, and none of that preset patterns we carried over are the same. So these are all fresh new regions. So we'd have to go in and maybe start fresh again, open this one, maybe go simple and soft again, and you can kind of see what that sounds like. And this is going to be a much more kind of trap feel because this is called trapdoor. Let's say we don't want the cymbals here, just the kick and snare. Or maybe I'd like something like this. And I don't want any fills, let's say. Different pattern here. So let's just say we're sold with that. We can go option, click, and then drag again. And then we can make a new pre-chorus beat and then a new chorus beat as a simple kind of principle to create dynamic in your songs. You don't want the beat to be the same throughout. You want to have different elements coming in on your beat at different sections of your song. So your verse, your pre, your chorus, or whatever your structure is, the beat or the elements within the beat should all be different. Even the kick should be a bit louder in the chorus versus the kick in the verses, for example. Same thing goes with the volume of the snare or even different percussive elements. Maybe you have a layered snare in the chorus, or you have claps, or even a tambourine. Different things to create dynamic that just sound new and fresh between the different parts of your song. Let's talk about the second way on how to make a beat now in GarageBand, and this is totally making beats from scratch. So if you're fresh on all of this, I would recommend starting with drummer tracks to get ideas of how actual cool beats are made, because there's nothing wrong with just taking this beat here and actually creating that from scratch. If we have our own kick samples or snare samples that we want, we can just create this pattern and we can actually create this pattern from scratch now. So we can use it if you need ideas of beats. go through the drummer tracks, find genres, and these also in the hip hop genre here, we have different styles of drum machines, and then go in and use the quadratic here and find the patterns you like, and then you can make your own beat from scratch. That's a great way to get comfortable with making beats. So let's go to Boutique 808, and then let's just make this beat from scratch. So we have kick, snare, kick, kick, snare. Okay, so how we make a beat from scratch, we have to go up to the top here, track, new track, and then we're going to add a software instrument. So create. Now we need the sounds of a kick, right, and a snare. So in order to do that, we need to change our classic electric piano, which is the default software instrument in GarageBand. Go down to electronic drum kit. If you want a real drum sound, you would go to drum kit. So we're going to go to electronic drum kit, and we're going to find the Boutique 808 because we're going to try to make the same pattern. We can do it in 3 ways. We can use our MIDI controller to trigger the sounds. We can use musical typing in GarageBand, or we can do it with our mouse. I'll show you quickly how to do it on a MIDI controller now, and then we'll focus on doing it with our mouse, just so you get the idea of how to eventually edit these notes anyways, because we'll be doing that too. So if you have a MIDI controller connected to your computer, then just head over to it and start pressing like keys. So you can see here I'm pressing the D, and actually you can hear the pitch of the kick goes up. So find the pitch you like of your kick. That sounds pretty good. You can just hear the pattern: kick, 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 snare, kick, 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 snare. So now let's just record our own over this pattern. So we're ready to record. Scroll over here and just type R on your keyboard. Okay, so I just did that, and you can see those notes are in here. So we're going to want to quantize this. In order to do this, we have to double click, and we're going to open up the scissor window here. You can see these are the kick notes I just played. But if I zoom in, you'll notice they are before the beat, before the rhythm. We want them to be right on the lines here. We can go in and click and drag them like this. The easy way to do this is using quantization. So in order to do that quickly, we can go Command A, and this is going to highlight all the notes. We can go down here, it says time quantize. We just have to press this Q, and that's going to lock the notes in place. Now here's where it's going to be an issue for someone who hasn't played in time yet. For example, if we quantize here by a whole note, you can see everything's jumped to the first part of the bar. Everything's either jumped to 1 or 2, and that's because we're telling GarageBand to do that to a whole note, but we want to go to the nearest 16th note, because then it's going to snap to the nearest 16th note, which are these bars. This line here, this line here, this line here, this line here. Those are all the nearest 16th notes, because literally if you count the number of bars within 1 and 2, it's 16 bars in there. And there's even more bars if you scroll more. You can go quantize by 32nd and a 64th note. A safe quantization value is 1/16. So now we have our kick pattern that is the same as our drummer set. So we can just mute that and listen to our kick. Okay, now let's add the snare value with our mouse. So we have to go to find where the snare is. So double click on our region here, and we just, unfortunately, it's not super easy to figure out like visually. So you just use your mouse, and we're going to actually draw our snare sound in with our mouse. So you're gonna have to like scroll, like click and drag and scroll on these keys, and just wait till you hear a snare sound. So I'm gonna click and drag. So these are all kicks. Looks like we have a percussion thing here. Then sounds like these are there's a snare sound. let's say we like this snare sound. So we would add the snare sound where the snare is going to be. So it usually is on this note, on the second. Let's do this one. So I can press play and see what that sounds like. I can just make this a bit smaller. So on here too, and here. Your snare patterns will usually fall on the one or the 3 or the 2 and the 4. In this case, it's the 2 and the 4. And what I mean by that is like within a bar here, within 1 and 2, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. That's the rhythm of a beat. And usually your snare, to create structure for your song, will fall on the 2 and the 4 or the 1 and the 3. So in this case, it's the 2 and the 4. So we know there will be a snare here as well. Let's just have that looped. And now we can start creating our beat. So we used that Boutique 808 with Des to get ideas. Now we can take it further and get our own creativity here. So let's say we want to find a hi-hat sound somewhere. So let's look for hi-hats. There's a hi-hat sound here and a one here. So again, whatever one you want to go with, let's just say this one. Now a key point which I totally just skipped over is what I'm doing in order to draw these notes in is I'm holding down Command. And this is a big thing you need to know. So if you hold down Command on your keyboard, it's going to change your mouse to a pencil. This gives us the opportunity to just click anywhere in here to draw notes in. So I can go to that hi-hat note, which was about here, and then we would start clicking in notes. Now we need to kind of think of what hi-hat pattern we want. Let's say in this section, we just want maybe a 1/8 or 1/4 pattern. So let's just put 4 in here right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then another 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we can keep going like this, but we can also be copying and pasting notes if that's faster. But for now, I'm just gonna go like this. So now we have this hi-hat pattern. We can hear what that sounds like. So let's say we want it to be faster, then we can go and delete these notes, or we can also be highlighting them, and I'm just gonna make them smaller. I'm gonna put those all in half like this. Now I can do a few different things. I can make copies of these. Remember that I was holding down Option and making patterns? So I'm gonna do that, and I'm just quickly going to make copies like that. So now I have an 1/8 note pattern. So if that was too fast, let me just Command Z that. These are just kind of quick ways to speed things up. You can totally be doing, going in, clicking them, deleting them, and then putting your command tool and drawing them one in at a time like this. This is very fine too. But you'll start to notice when you can kind of find different ways to make things faster, you're going to save a lot of time. So what we did there again is we highlighted all the hi-hats. And now I'm just going to, all I'm doing is clicking and dragging on one because they're all highlighted. I can cut them all in half. And now I can make copies of all those. I can hold down Option and click. Now I have a copy I can drag anywhere. I can make kicks out of these if I want. I'm just going to put them right beside there. This is essentially how to make a beat. This is already a beat that you could write something over, rap something over, use it as a song. Where we can take it further now is creating more dynamic within the beat and changing some of the velocities within the hi-hats especially, maybe the snares too, and then layering some claps on the snare too, or maybe adding some rolls on the hi-hats. This is just going to make the beat more exciting. So let's do that right now. Let's start with rolls on the hi-hats. So let's say around the transition we want some type of roll. Something like that. How to create a roll is just basically within like this area here, we just want many hi-hats happening. So I'm going to zoom in here, and now I'm going to just take this hi-hat and make it smaller. But now I'm also just going to put 3 hi-hats in this little bar. So I'm going to create another one. And I'm going to create one more. Oh, it happened to fall there, but I'm just going to drag it up. and see what this sounds like. So it's just a roll here. It's going, and if we want this to be locked in, we can just highlight them and go over here. We cannot quantize by 1/16 because that's just going to make them all be here, because it's saying bring all these notes to the nearest bar, which is this bar here. So this is what that will be like. See, they've all snapped to this line. We want to quantize actually by 1/64th. And you'll notice that there's invisible, think of invisible lines here that are supposed to be here. I'm not sure why GarageBand doesn't put them. So that's what a roll sounds like. If we zoom out, we can also have one here if we want at the end. So we click in, drag it down, make a copy, or just draw two more in, and then highlight these and quantize by 1/64th. It's okay if they're that small. They don't need to be touching. So now we can loop at the top and hear what this sounds like with the rolls. If you don't want the rolls in those places, you can go and delete them, edit them, and create them in other areas. The next thing we can do, especially with the hi-hats, because they're so high in the mix and they're really easy to hear, we want to have some type of velocity. So in order to change the velocity, which is like the strength of the note, we can do it in two ways. We can just click on the note and you can see we have velocity here. We can use this slider to change the strength of the note. And you can see this middle bar here. The stronger we go, the bigger that middle bar is. The smaller we go in velocity, the smaller this bar is. So we want a velocity pattern as well. If not, then all the hi-hats are going to sound like a machine, and it's just it can become quite annoying. Just to have a small difference in velocity will really help your hi-hats. A good rule of thumb is to have the first on the 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the ones, have those be a bit louder and have these be a bit quieter. So a quick way to do that is to go and to go to the ones, just make them a bit louder, and then highlight these three and just make them quieter. It's a bit louder, make these a bit quieter. And you can also dial in on these separate ones and make them all have their own dynamic as well. You'll see this part has velocity dynamic and this part doesn't. And you'll try to hear that difference. It also can be very much a stylistic thing to your genre and your style of music. If you'd prefer to have the machine-like hi-hats, then don't change the velocity. Another thing we can do now to add beats is layering. So we can look for different types of snare-like sounds, maybe a clap to add with our snare. So where is a clap? We can just click and drag on our keyboard here. We can also be doing this on our actual MIDI controller as well. If you don't have a MIDI controller, the other way I wanted to mention too was using musical typing, which is under Window, Show Musical Typing, and then it pops up this bar window here, and we can be clicking these to actually get the drum sounds on our musical typing keyboard. So we can look for a clap sound here. I have to go down an octave here, so I press Z to get different sounds. You can see that we were up here. I need to go down one. So let's add this kind of clap sound. And I can just press R on my keyboard, and then whenever the snare comes, I'm just going to click it with my mouse with E. Okay, I'm going to X that, and you can see my natural playing just with my mouse. I wasn't fully in time. I'm going to zoom in and show you that. This clap was supposed to be right there. It's hard sometimes as a human to play totally in time. That's okay. That's why we have things like quantization, and we can click that and just drag it into place. And I'll do that with the other snares. They're clap sounds. The other way to do that is like what we did. You can highlight them, and then you would want to quantize it by 1/16. I think what we'll do is just highlight the claps and just really lower that velocity just so they're not overpowering the snare. So I'm going to highlight those and just bring that total velocity down to like 35. So let's hear what that sounds like. Another way to add more life to your beats or to adding different percussive elements. You can maybe add, like, go into the drum set, maybe use musical typing and search for sounds. So let's go down an octave, see what sounds we got. So maybe we could use that on some of these snare notes. And you can see when I'm clicking on it, it's highlighting this note. There's a dot that shows up. So we know that we can just go there with our mouse, press Command, and I can actually put it there. So maybe I only want it on this note and this note. Let's also look for like some type of hi-hat opens that we can use. So let's open up musical typing in by pressing Command K, and I'm gonna search for like an open hat. So something like this. You could also add some shakers if you want to, or a crash at the beginning of the beat. But let's add these hats first, where I'm thinking is like something right here. So I'm just going to draw it in with my mouse. I can click it and I know it's on this note, this black key here. So I'm going to press Command and just put it right there. I think that's where I want it. Let's just listen to it in context. Yeah, that's where I want it. I can make that a bit longer, and I can also make it a bit harder. So 37, I'll bring that velocity up to about 77. And I'm also going to put the same one at the end. So I can make a copy of it, and also I'm just going to draw it with my pencil right here. So let's hear what that sounds like. I'm just also pressing C on my keyboard. This is just going to turn this cycle on and off. So I know if I want to start the loop from the beginning, I can just press C and then space bar. So maybe something at the end just to pick it up, going to the next bar, like a tom sound and maybe a percussive sound like that. We also saw some shakers that we could add. So the shakers were P, so this black key there. We can add maybe shakers at a slower tempo. So maybe these are 1/8 pattern, the hi-hats. Let's add a shakers doing 1/4. So these are the shakers. I'm going to zoom in for you. And I'm just going to add shaker pattern like this. I can keep drawing them in, but I can also be doing copies like this, holding down Option and dragging, making these copies. So that's a pretty good beat just to get a vibe going for a song, right? If you wanted to do a quick mix while you're songwriting and creating, you can go into the controls menu at the top here, and you can see the volume knobs for each of the elements. So if your kick's too quiet, your snare's too loud, you go in and fix the actual, you can do a quick mix here. So that's how to make a beat in GarageBand. Please feel free to subscribe to this video. Lots more GarageBand and Logic Pro X tutorials, music production tutorials on the way. So I hope to see you in the next video.